is up, y'all? Happy weekend. Hopefully you guys are having a good one out there. This is going to be a low-key, very, very, very low-key, mellow episode. I thought you guys could use a bit of a break after some of those spicy episodes. Plus, full disclosure, your girl isn't doing too well. Third trimester is starting to hit hard, honestly. I kind of hit a bit of a bender these past couple days, and I know it's just for silly, irrational reasons. And I know it's because of the pregnancy hormones. And I know I'm technically fine. And I know I chose this. All of those things, right? But that doesn't change how I feel. You know what I mean? And I mean, honestly, I feel like if y'all are listening this far into my podcast, you're a real one, regardless. You care at least a little bit about me for even taking the time to listen to this, to support me. And so, I mean, just point blank, thank you for that. But yeah, I feel like I can be honest on here with y'all. And I know, you guys know me. I'll be fine eventually. I just need to kind of wallow in my feelings for a little bit longer before I drag myself out of them. So, thank you in advance for the people that have already given me pep talks, that have already kind of talked me out of some of my feelings. But yeah, it'll be a mellow episode. And it's just going to be on judging people's life choices. So remember a few episodes ago when I talked about seeking out, actively seeking out people and content with a differing opinion than yours in the religion and politics episode? It's going to kind of be a continuation of that a little bit, but more so on the lifestyle choices. And I mean, that's the first thing that they teach you in school when you're doing research papers. Don't only read materials that support your thesis, right? Actively seek out and find contradictory materials and use that. Either use that to your advantage to strengthen your argument, use that to diversify your argument and your mindset, or just, use this to be hey, this is what the other side is saying. This is why they're wrong. This is why I'm right, so on and so forth. And then once I got farther into my education, especially with an English background, they would always look for contradictory references in our annotated bibliographies and in our works cited pages, because they also encouraged us to, read every side of the topic. They encouraged us to shift our thesis or position if we found more research materials that better supported the other side or that made more sense. They would be heck yeah, change your thesis. I don't care if you started off saying the sky is purple. If you find data that suggests otherwise, go ahead and change your mind, say the sky is blue. How at the very beginning of the semester or at the start of the class, whatever, or anytime they introduce hey, this is your next huge assignment, especially for essays, research papers, things like that. A lot of teachers would ask for a thesis and maybe a paragraph or two of explanation on a prospective midterm or final essay, whatever, way, way, way in advance. I mean, one of my teachers personally, they were look, if your prospectus is exactly the same as your final product, you didn't do enough research. That's your clue that you didn't read enough if nothing changed. And I mean, to a certain extent, I think incorporating these differing views and mindsets into your life should apply to people and their lifestyle choices too. I mean, at a minimum, I'm not saying you have to agree with it. I'm just saying at a minimum, support it and don't negate someone else's life choices just because it's different from yours. My dad actually came out to visit us the other day and check out the house. And it was great, honestly. It was a really good visit. It was a short trip. He came in at noon and then left by 5 a.m. the next morning because it was a pit stop for a work trip. And I mean, I hadn't seen him since January of 2022. And that time also, it was only for a total of 8 or 10 hours, something like that. And it was same thing, a drive-by pit stop before the airport. And anyway, this last trip, we were talking about things, I don't know, just everything. And he said something really awesome, I think, that stuck with me. And so he was listen, people can do whatever they want to do. They can live whatever type of life they want to live. They can believe whatever politics they want to believe in, whatever religion they want to believe in. I don't care. He was like, I can respect that, but just don't force me to also have those same beliefs if I don't want to. Just respect my choices like I respect yours. And I was like, hell yeah, dude. I don't like when people tell me what to do or believe either. Like, that's pretty fair, I would say. That is a very fair statement to make. You can disagree or dislike somebody's choices without rejecting them as a person and without disrespecting them. So I think a good example of this too, it's one of my favorites. Also, I'm just feeling very nostalgic, so bear with me. But my grandmother loved my long hair. That was like part of my identity to her. She was obsessed with it. Like, she would get mad at me if I cut it to my collarbone. She was like, why would your mother let you do that? And yeah, she just hated anything besides very long hair. So if you guys knew me then, or if you remember, if you saw pictures, 3 years ago, I buzzed my head, like basically down to the skin, like completely bald buzzed head. And I was like, oh boy, grandmother is not going to like this one. And yeah, so I had to call her ahead of time before I visited her. And I was like, listen, grandmother, I know how you feel about my hair, so just be prepared. Like, let me emotionally prepare you now. I am bald. You know what I mean? And but I told her, I'm like, listen, I know how you feel about my hair. I know you don't like it. You don't have to like it. You don't even have to pretend that you like it. And she goes, oh, trust me, I won't pretend. She was so spicy. Bless her heart. But I always said, I was like, grandmother, I know you hate my hair, but I know that you love me. So just don't forget about that. And she was always so sweet about it, because she would, I'd be sitting at her kitchen table and she would look at me and roll her eyes and say, sugar, you're crazy. Like, why would you ever do that? But here's some extra chicken and dumplings, your favorite food that I only make for you because you always ask for it. I don't even like it, but I'm going to make extras for you just because I know you love it. You know what I mean? Like, she was always so sweet, and she was so good about seeing that differentiation between the person and the person's life choices. Same thing with tattoo. She saw my tattoo on my wrist. Of course she didn't like it, but she didn't kick me out of the house. She still loved me as a person. She still loved Maggie. And she could make that distinction of like, okay, I don't like tattoos. I don't like your tattoo. I think it's dumb that you got a tattoo, but I love you. And I think that's the big part there. So, R.I.P. to grandmother. But yeah. But even though Daniel and I we had completely opposite upbringings and childhoods and family dynamics, but I do feel like we're kind of the same in that sense, where we kind of make off-the-wall life choices a little bit. And I think I'm really starting to notice that now with my major life changes and my choices and stuff. But Daniel came from not a military family. He had a step grandpa that was in the Navy, and that's like it. But everyone's grandpa is in the Navy. You know what I mean? And so he didn't have like friends that joined. He didn't know anyone that joined. He was just kind of out of the blue, just talked to a recruiter and was like, okay, yeah, I'll do it. College doesn't really sound like it's for me, so I'll go military. And so for him, like, joining the military was a huge, like, nobody did that. No one, the whole friend group, no one knew people in the military that did that. Like, he made that off-the-wall life choice to go completely 180, do something no one else in their immediate circle was doing. And he's like, bye, see you later. You know what I mean? And so, and he would get questions about that. Like, it was kind of funny because it was earlier this year, back before we left California, and we were doing like a final dinner thing with his friends and, high school friends, all this stuff. And they were like, oh, do you ever regret joining the military? And I'm like, yeah, Daniel, do you regret joining the military and meeting me and marrying me and having a child with me? Like, do you regret that? Let's answer that question now in front of me. This is good. But I'm just kidding. I'm just a little spicy. But yeah, they're like, do you regret joining the military? And Daniel was like, no. What would I have done? Gone to college, gotten student loans, lived in my parents' basement until who knows when, And then what? Like, he was like, no, it's not for me. Like, military was the best decision I ever made. Like, I don't regret it at all. And I was like, good answer, Daniel. Good, very, very, very good answer. And kind of the opposite, but the same trajectory. I come from an entirely military family. Like, I'm not saying we were all forced to join the military, but it was absolutely like what do you mean you're considering not joining? Like, I remember when I was a kid and I went through that phase with music, like every kid does, and they're like, I'm going to be famous, blah, 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 I'm going to be like a famous musician, whatever. But my temporary, like the real goal that you tell adults, because of course you don't say, I'm going to be a famous musician. You say, oh, I'm going to go to school and I'll be a music teacher. I'll get into music education, whatever, because it's a little bit more reasonable. And I remember people telling me, like, why? Like, music is a hobby, not a career, which is kind of fair. And they're like, what are you going to do? Go to college? Like, how are you going to pay for college? You're going to get student loans and be a leech on society? And I was like, well, that doesn't sound super awesome. Thank you for the encouragement. But it was always like, from the moment we were born on, the option was always, not even the option, like kind of the only viable choice was the military. All 5 of us kids joined. All of our spouses were in the military. Both the parents were in the military. The aunts, the uncles, the cousins, the grandpas, the grandmas, literally everyone from who knows how many generations back, they were all in the military. Like, that's just what we did. We always joke and we're like, yeah, we were the Air Force before the Air Force was established as the Air Force. And so that was just like, that was our normal. And no one really deviated from that necessarily. And then, I choose to separate just like because I feel like it. And that was, for me, that was like, that's where I was deviating from the normal pathway. And I'm not, I promise, I'm not being pretentious, and I'm not just saying this to brag, I'm really not. But not many of us made E7 in 9 years, got to the halfway point, and then just pulled chalks. Just because we wanted to do something different. And so just me willfully choosing to separate from the military, everyone was kind of like, what do you mean you're getting out? And of course, no one believed me. They're like, yeah, sure you are. We'll wait for the re-enlistment. And then the re-enlistment just never came, And then I made rank, and they're like, well, obviously that'll change your decision. And I'm like, no, it doesn't change my decision at all, actually. And everyone was like, what do you mean? Like, why would you get out of the military? Like, you're doing great. You've got a great career. You've got a great future ahead of you in the military, yada, yada. Why would you deviate from that? And I literally was just like, I want to. Because that's what I think is right for me. And I was actually looking back through some old texts from like a couple years ago. And because I was looking for something, I don't know. It doesn't matter. And it was one of the kind of the first times where I had told family members, like, hey, I'm separating. Like 100%, I'm gonna get out at the end of my enlistment. And one of the texts was literally, they go, are you sure you want to do that? Like, don't you think you're gonna regret it? Are you sure you actually want to do that? And I was like, yep, pretty sure. I'll let you know if my mind changes, but I'm pretty sure. And I think that phrase, just, are you sure you want to do that? I think that phrase just kind of sums up this whole episode, but it also sums up how sometimes people aren't always as supportive of life choices as they should be. I think there's better ways to say, ooh, are we weighing all of the pros and cons? What does our future look like this way versus that way? I think there's nicer ways to say and to convey those types of feelings to the people we care about, more than just, are you going to regret this? Are you sure about that? Because granted, I mean, especially for me, like making that choice to get out, especially, and then to make the choice to not work for the year and not go to school for a year, just completely take a year off and have a child. That's a risky choice, right? That's a very unpredictable move. Like, I can understand where there could be concern in that. I just think that there are better ways to convey that concern than, are you sure about that? Are you sure you want to do that? Do you know what I'm saying? And so all of this to say, I think it's important that we support different life choices. If you're the one that's like, hey, I want to do something completely different that no one in my circle has done before, I'm just going to go for it. I say go for it. Because what happens? You fail? Okay, now you know. Now you know that's not in your cards. But at least you can say you tried. At least you can know for certain, okay, this is my decision, this is the outcome, versus always wondering and guessing, hey, would I ever have made it as a musician? Would I have made it in college? Would I have done X, Y, and Z, right? Insert your personal life story here. And I was talking to Daniel about this the other day, and again, he comes up with the most philosophical things sometimes. I need to loan him out to you guys sometimes because he's just so sweet and he's like so supportive, and I feel like he just always says the right things. You'd never guess it from like his vibes because he seems very just like lax and carefree and just kind of existing, always happy-go-lucky, whatever. But sometimes he really does have the deepest insights and comments. And it just, I don't know, it's very soothing for my soul. So yeah, if you guys ever need to borrow some of his input, definitely go for it. But yeah, I was talking to him about it. And this is what he said. He was like mid-pee on like a Tuesday afternoon. Like, you know what I mean? Just like not even thinking about it at all. And I was talking to him about it. And then he goes, you know, you've only got one life to live. People are always going to give you their opinions. You just got to do what makes you happy. That's all that matters. And I was like, Daniel, thank you. That actually was really great. I'm like, wow, that's what I needed. Thank you. So yeah, if you have friends or family or high school associates, whatever the case may be, if they go a different lifestyle path than you, maybe don't immediately hate them for it. Maybe just embrace it, support it. Especially if it's people that you care about. And I know that can be tricky because if they're if they're taking that risk, if they're stepping into that unknown, it can be scary because you don't want to see them fail. You don't want to see them struggle. You don't want to see them make the wrong choice. But if that's what's best for them in that chapter of their life, maybe they just need like a supportive role in that. Again, all things in context, right? Of course, got to add that caveat in there. But I don't know, maybe this episode is also about encouraging people to take those leaps. Yeah, I kind of like that. Maybe just, you know what I mean? All those things you've always dreamed of that were never actually attainable in your head. Maybe just go for them. Start that podcast. Write that book. Become a pilot. Ayo, shout out to my sister. We had that conversation too a little while ago. And she was like, when I joined the military, I never even thought of becoming a pilot. Because it was like in my head, that wasn't even like an option. Like that wasn't even an attainable goal. It just wasn't even realistic for me. And now she's in pilot training. That's like the coolest thing ever. So yeah, take that chance. Move to that random state that you've never been to before. Move to that other country you've never been before. Why not? You know, like I said, worst thing that happened, okay, you moved to Switzerland and you hated it, so you move back. Cool, now you can say you lived in Switzerland. You have that experience. You will always have that experience and no one can ever take that away from you. So why not? Just do it. Just take that leap of faith. Take that first step. First step's always the scariest, right? And the biggest thing is, yes, you can prepare. Yes, you can do research. Yes, you can, try and prep everything ahead of time. But don't wait until you feel like you're ready because you're never going to be ready. Anyone that has a kid, I feel like that's the most consistent advice I've gotten as a new mom almost, is that, because everyone asks like, oh, are you ready? Are you ready to be a mom? And I'm always like, no, I'm not. Of course I'm not ready. How would I be ready if I don't have a kid yet? But all of the parents say, no, that's normal. Like, you're never going to be ready. just do it. You just learn along the way. And eventually it gets better. Eventually you kind of figure things out. And I think that's the same thing with life. You're never going to be fully prepared to start that new job, to swap career fields, to make that big move. But you got to do it at some point. Otherwise, you're just going to stay in the same place you're at now. And you know what I mean? You're going to plateau. So, I don't know. That's just my thought on the process. But to each their own. To each their own lifestyle choices. And I support you guys. If you want to, if you're like happy, if you're truly happy and content where you're at and you're like, I honestly want to do this until I die, I support that for you. If you're like, maybe there's more. Is there more? What if there's more to life than the 8-to-5 corporate burnout? I already support that jump. You move to New York City and start a Broadway show. I will be there. Whatever the case may be. You want to start a crocheting company? I will buy a crocheted turtle from you. I will always support you guys as best I can. As long as you make good choices, as long as y'all are decent human beings, which I have full faith that you are, that's all that counts, right? That's what counts to me. So, with that being said, happy weekend. I hope you guys have a good week coming up. I hope you guys take some time out of your busy days to really think about what you value the most in your life. And I hope you really lean into that and you embrace that. You support the people around you. You support the people that love you. Keep taking care of each other. And I will see you all next week. Okay, bye.